Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. Between now and August 10th, if you use this promo code, you will automatically be entered into a drawing where 4 winners will each win one of the Commander 2018 pre-constructed decks. See the description below for more details. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to part 4 of our 4-part look at the Commander 2018 deck list. We're going to end things today with Subjective Reality. This is the Esper deck that wants to know what's on top of your library, because that is going to matter, and there's a lot of ways to manipulate that, and you're going to notice as we go through today's cards. Now, if you saw the other videos in the series, you kind of know what to expect here. We're going to review all the new cards in great detail. We're going to go faster through the reprints and just talk about how they tie into the strategy, and then at the end of the video, I'll give you my final thoughts on the deck. Quickly, before we get started though, fast reminder, you heard it at the beginning of the video, we're still offering that promotion with Flipside Gaming. All the details are in the description below. Find out how you could maybe win one of these Commander 2018 decks. Also, we have our Patreon page down there and some product links for Amazon. These are always to help support what we do here at the channel. But as always, thank you not only to the folks that look at those links, but to all the viewers. You all make the channel what it is, and let's get into it. And we'll begin, as we always do, with the foil commander cards. There's 3 cards in each deck that can actually be your commander out of the box, and they're brand new cards. They only come in foil. So let's look at the featured one first. It's Pinnito, the Fate Shifter. And this particular commander is very solid for this deck build. First off, it's very cheap. Just Esper colors to cast it, 3 loyalty, that's good enough, especially considering you only paid 3 mana. It is 3 different colors, but still. +1, draw a card, and then put a card from your hand on top of your library. That's going to be key in this deck. You're going to see that as we go through the cards today. It's all about manipulating what's on top of the library, and then a lot of cards that you're going to be able to play will interact with that card, or at least some of the cards on top of your library. The -1, exile another target permanent you own, then return it to the battlefield under your control. This also ties into a big sub-theme that you're going to find throughout the day here. Not only do we care about the library, but we are also trying to care a little bit about enters and leaves battlefield effects, because we do have some reanimation going on, a little bit of flickering, things of that nature. So as we go through the cards today, you're going to see that I don't know if that strategy is completely 100% fulfilled, but they do a pretty good job of lacing it throughout, and at least you might be able to find some little advantages here or there. The -6 is interesting. It's weird because it feels like a very red ability to me, but there's no red in this card, obviously. Sometimes this will be great for you. Other times it's going to be something you don't want to do. And that feels a little bit awkward considering this is a ultimate, right? Like, ultimates I feel like should be a little grander and a little more consistent. This is grand, I'll give it that, but I don't know about consistency here. I like the idea of this, but I don't know, it feels like it's almost on the wrong card or something. But it's fine. I mean, there's going to be times it will be great, I'm sure. Verena, Lich Queen. Okay, this one is maybe one of the more puzzling ones out of the box, because this is all about zombies. It's a great zombie commander. Let's talk about this card just as a card first. If you were looking for a zombie commander, you just found it. White, blue, and black. The black covers the classic zombies, the blue covers the more created, manufactured zombies like the Frankenstein monsters, and white covers the mummies. So yeah, this is awesome just in that regard. And then look at the abilities here. It's a zombie on its own, a 4/4. Whenever you attack with 1 or more zombies, draw that many cards and discard that many cards, and you gain that much life. Wow, okay. Card selection, populating the graveyard, gaining life, all the things that are going to come in very handy in a zombie build. The ability that you pay 2 for, exile 2 cards from your graveyard, create a tap 2/2 black zombie creature token. Wonderful. This also has a way to create more zombies on top of everything. This card is super sweet. The problem is this isn't really a zombie deck. There are some zombie cards in here, and there's a way to make a lot of zombie tokens from at least one card we're going to see in a few moments. But honestly, this is a sub theme. So are you going to make this your commander out of the box? Probably not, but it's a really cool card. And like I said, it is a zombie on its own. So I won't say that even just with this card in play, you can't get some incremental value, but you really want to play this in a zombie deck. Yenneck Cryptic Sovereign. This is actually one of the more popular cards right now in the secondary market, stabilizing right now around $12. But it will go down, obviously, when the product actually comes out and people can get their hands on it. But I think it's popular because it's just so interesting and different, and it kind of plays into the whole idea that you can build like a whole like odd casting cost deck if you wanted to. There's a lot of odd cards in this deck, but not all, obviously. So you could, quote unquote, miss with this. But even when you miss, you still draw the card, so that's not bad. And the trigger is just simply attacking. You don't have to connect with combat damage or anything like that. And since this thing has Flying, Vigilance, and Menace, most of the time you should find an open lane somewhere on the battlefield to attack and get this to trigger without losing the creature. So I do like that quite a bit. It's a really interesting card. I love the design of this. Probably my second choice out of the box is the commander, but really it's going to be hard to pull me off of Aminato. It's just too perfect in this deck. Okay, now that we're past the foil commanders, let's look at the other new creatures that you'll find in the deck. Boreas Charger. I like this card. I mean, you are jumping through hoops a little bit, though. First, you have to have an opponent who controls more land than you. Then you need this thing to leave the battlefield. But at that point, you get to search for a number of Plains cards equal to the difference and reveal them. So Plains doesn't mean just basic Plains, remember. So if you have like a shock land that might count as a Plains or something like that, then wonderful. You could even fix some color here. If not, maybe you're just thinning out your deck and just trying to keep pace with the person who has the most lands. That's not a bad thing either. But this is the first of a lot of cards you're going to see that either have a leave or enters the battlefield effect. So again, we see the flicker ability that's on Aminato. Not to mention, you're going to see some ways to recur things from the graveyard. So it's going to make sense in the long run here. Is this the best one of these type of abilities? Maybe not necessarily, but I do love the fact that it leaves the battlefield. So that leaves it open to a lot of manipulation possibility. Loyal Unicorn. I talked about this in yesterday's deck because it was in the banned deck as well, but I'll just say quickly, fantastic card. One of the best cards, I think, that is in these new products. It is awesome if your commander's in play and you want to be aggressive. Basically, taking the combat damage off all your creatures, giving them all vigilance. It just is basically free attacks. Fantastic card for just 4 mana in 1 color. Magus of the Balance. We talked about this a lot when it was previewed, and a lot of people saw this and said, wow, it's basically balance on a creature, but balance has been banned in Commander. Is this too powerful? I don't know if it is. I mean, I guess we'll see once we sit down and play with it. But here's the drawback the balance doesn't have. I mean, balancing for 2 out of nowhere is very, very powerful. Balancing this way, where I have to play the creature and then somehow get to the point where I don't have Summoning Sickness, which most of the time means it has to come back to my turn, unless I can give it haste or something like that. But if I can't cheat that part of it, now I have to wait till it gets back to my turn and then pay 5 to actually balance. And it's only 2/2, so everyone had a chance to maybe take this thing out if they didn't want to balance. So it feels like it's super, super slow. The other thing I got to ask myself is, I don't know why I'm necessarily trying to balance in this particular deck other than the fact that it's a panic button. And yes, it might populate my graveyard a little bit for some of the graveyard interactions, which again, just don't feel like there's enough to matter as you go through the entirety of this deck. So it's okay here. I think ultimately it could be a fun card to play in some other builds though, definitely, especially if you were a little more all in on the reanimation theme. Loyal Subordinates. Hey, we found a zombie, so here's one if you're keeping track at home. So it's a 3/1 for 3 with Menace. You know, if I'm in a more aggressive build, this is interesting to me. Not as interesting, honestly, in this build. Like a real zombie build, this would probably be great. Now, the Lieutenant ability is fine. I mean, on my turn, all my opponents lose 3 life. But also, that might get annoying and turn some attention towards me as well. And you might not want that, considering the impact of this card is not all that big. I don't want to get everyone at the table mad at me over this. It just feels a little strange here. Knight Incarnate. Well, here's another leaves the battlefield effect. So again, I like that. It can be manipulated. It also has Evoke, which does make sense again with some of the recursion that's going on. I might be able to play this a couple times over the course of the game. Maybe one time to Evoke if I'm falling behind on land and I need to protect myself. And then another time for real. And yeah, it's good in this deck. It's just fine considering that sub-theme that is in here. And so you could flicker this again with the ability from the Planeswalker and get some value there. Pretty good card overall. Sower of Discord. Now, here's another one of those cards that's like, I'm not really sure why it's here, but you know what? It's still really cool, so I'll take it. It's a 6/6 flyer for 6. And when it enters the battlefield, you get to choose 2 players and kind of link their life totals. Whenever damage is dealt to one of the chosen players, the other one also loses that much life. So I could link 2 opponents, for example, try to take them both out at once, or just do it and kind of see what happens with everybody else. Did they start to get attacked more? What's going to happen? Or I could link myself with somebody if I think they're going to try to take me out and I want to make them think twice about it. So overall, I think it's a really sweet commander card. And I'm glad they designed something like this and printed it because a lot of the new cards are really solid. I'm going to give you that. Even if they don't always feel like they fit in the deck that they're in, they are very solid. Yuriko the Tiger Shadow. Okay, another one of the real popular cards right now in the secondary market, about $19 or so. Again, that will go down obviously when the product comes out, but right now a lot of people are excited about this card, and rightfully so. It's got Commander Ninjutsu. That's phenomenal. Now, the thing is a cheap commander. It has that ability. The Commander Ninjutsu will get around commander tax, by the way, when you use that ability. It will be great if you have a way to maybe sacrifice it so you can do that often. You know what would be even better, though? If I could actually make this the commander in this deck, but of course you can't because it's a Esper deck and there's no white in this. So that's a little awkward, but again, if you take this out of this deck and put it into something else, it could be really, really fun. Now, the ability itself, just as part of your 99, is really good because when a ninja you control deals combat damage, and there are other ninjas in the deck, we'll see. It's not, again, a huge theme, maybe a little sub-theme, but there are a few. And then you get to reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hands. Each opponent loses life equal to the card's converted mana cost. So again, if you can manipulate what's on top of your library and put something there that has a high converted mana cost, you'll definitely get some value here. Geode Golem. Okay, this was in the Izzet deck, so we talked about it a few days ago. I'm not crazy about this card. I mean, especially in this deck, if I'm using Aminato, which I probably am, that only costs 3. Notice that the ability doesn't get you past the commander tax, unfortunately. Maybe that would be a little different. The other ones are 4 and 5. Maybe if I'm using Yanets, I mean, 5's a little bit better. The other thing, if I don't do this quickly, then I'm not going to have a lot of opportunity to actually make the ability work, even with Trample, as the board state starts to get more and more cluttered. So yeah, I'm not really crazy about this one generally. New sorceries. Aminato's Augury. Another Seb McKinnon piece of art here, which looks amazing. But aside from that, this is a pretty good card. Again, if you can manipulate the top of your deck or at least know what's coming, this gets a little bit better. But you're looking at the top 8, so you should hit something. I mean, definitely I would feel like you'll hit a land 95% of the time, right? Aside from that, hopefully you hit maybe a couple other types of cards, and then all of a sudden it starts feeling like, okay, that 8 casting cost is worth what I'm doing here. It's Commander. You could potentially hit something really, really big, and that'll be great, but there is some variance behind it. This deck does try to mitigate that, though. Entreat the Dead. Wow, I just love the card border. Just seeing a Miracle in Black is just super sweet still. And is this good in the deck? Yeah, it's really good because Reanimation is a sub-theme, and you're going to have a lot of creatures, again, with enters the battlefield effects and such. So, yeah, this is going to be good. You're going to be happy to play this in the Miracle. You might be able to set that up for extra value in this deck. It will be great. Skullstorm, part of the cycle we've been looking at all week, and yes, this one is also pretty amazing. And, yeah, you know, it's expensive. 9 mana, right? That's a lot, but that's okay with me because I don't want to play this early. I want to play this a little bit later into the game, and if you play this without playing your commander, for example, it's not a big effect. You're definitely overpaying at that point. But if you play this after you maybe played your commander 5-6 times, this could be huge. Really whittle down people's board states or maybe even life total to the point where you can finish them off. Really exciting cycle here. Love all these cards. New enchantment. We have one of them. It's Primordial Mist. This is actually kind of sweet. Remember, Manifest does tie into the what's on top of my library matters because a lot of the time I'm going to want to try to hit a creature when I manifest. So you are going to see some Manifest cards in here. It's not trying to be like its own thing or anything. It's just trying to tie in with that mechanic, and it does make sense. Now, this card in particular, though, kind of nullifies that because if I miss and I don't hit a creature, well, that last ability, exile a face-down permanent you control face-up, you may play that card this turn, kind of takes the drawback out of Manifest as long as this stays in play. So I think that's actually kind of cool. Also, even though this does cost 5, it does trigger at the end of my turn. So I'm still getting something the turn I play it. So yeah, overall, this is actually pretty sweet. I like Manifest generally as a mechanic, and it does make sense here. New lands. We have Forge of Heroes again. This, of course, was in all the decks, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. But like I've been saying all week, I like that they kept it open, that I can use it on my stuff or play the political game, use it on someone else's. Isolated Watchtower. So this taps for colorless mana, but it also lets you scry, and that's going to be really, really important in this particular build. If I happen to be in a situation where I can get the land off it, well, wonderful, but even if not, I'm happy to scry with this land. So those are the new cards. A lot of them actually pretty sought after right now when it comes to at least pre-release time. So let's talk about the reprints, and there's a lot of them to go over. We're going to go a little bit faster now because you're going to know a lot of these cards. First one, Adhikar Valkyrie. Good inclusion, again, is it doing anything crazy here? Well, maybe, because there are some, again, leaves, enters, battlefield effects that are relevant. So it does play into that a little bit. Other than that, though, just a real solid creature that also protects something in a way. Serra Avatar. In Commander, this is a powerful card, right? Like, it could have a really high power toughness at times, and it doesn't cost all that much to get out on the battlefield, as a matter of fact. So, nice inclusion here, and it's going to tie in well with Manifest. If you can manifest this thing with maybe some of the abilities that are going to promote Manifest, which we'll see later in the video, this could be really good for you. Conundrum Sphinx. I love this card in this deck because it's just so much fun, like Scry, and if you know what's on top of your library, then wonderful, you're going to be able to draw extra cards. I just think it's really cool. Gin of Wishes. This is another really sweet card in this deck. Imagine if you knew that Serra Avatar was on top of your library. You could play that ability. That could be super sweet, right? So again, having that extra information and that extra manipulation really pushes this card. Jeskai Infiltrator for some Manifest shenanigans. This can't be blocked if you don't have any other creatures. I don't know how relevant that's going to be most of the time. But when you do get by with this, like you get to play a little shell game, which one of these is the Jeskai Infiltrator? And again, with this deck, it kind of makes sense. You can set up your Manifest to hopefully at least a percentage of the time be creatures. Muldrifter is going to fit nicely in that sub-theme with enters and leaves the battlefield effects and reanimation. This is an awesome card. Ninja of the Deep Hours. There's not a lot of ninjas, but here's another one that could play really well with Yuriko. And this on its own has Curiosity built in, which, yeah, it doesn't feel like it applies super strongly to the theme here, but if you manipulate what you're drawing, yeah, it does tie in at least lightly. Sigiled Starfish. Another way to scry, and a nice little blocker early on as well. This is a good card here. Sphinx of Jor Isle. Yeah, this one is actually really sweet. First off, it has Shroud. Nothing wrong with that, and flying. But you can basically cheat here and just look at the top of your library. I like that a lot in this particular deck. Sphinx of Athun. Factor Fiction Sphinx. Fantastic enters the battlefield effect here. And it's going to play really well into the sub-theme, but it's a great creature in its own right too. Also remember that ability will populate the graveyard, which at times could be relevant too. Phyrexian Delver. This one's kind of fun because it really ties into all the sub-themes. You got a zombie here, which there's not many of those. You also have a enters the battlefield effect, and it ties directly into reanimation. So, you know what? If you flicker this thing with Aminato, this will be really, really good for you. You might lose a little life, of course, but who cares if you're putting big, powerful creatures in play directly from the graveyard to the battlefield. I really like this one, actually. High Priest of Penance. This is a way to keep people off your back for sure, and maybe deal with a problematic non-land permanent. I also like the political game here. You can attack someone with this and say, hey, just block it because we need to deal with someone else's permanent over here that's more dangerous. So it's a good commander card for sure. Dustmantle Seer. On the plus side of a card like this, you can manipulate what you're pulling. So maybe you get to pull some lands or something like that to keep the damage off you. On the minus side, though, you're also damaging potentially all your opponents and also giving them more cards to get back at you. This card always feels a little shaky to me. We get another ninja with Silent Blade Oni. This is actually a pretty cool reprint. I mean, these things will run you typically $3, $4, so it has a little value attached to it. We'll talk more about value at the end of the video, though. And aside from that, this has a good ability to being able to look at a player's hand and then cast for free some of their best stuff. Kind of awesome. Enigma Sphinx. Big casting cost, but it has Cascade, so that's actually pretty sweet. Hopefully you'll cascade into something that's really relevant, especially if you can set that up, maybe manipulate the first couple cards of your library. And whenever this is put into the graveyard from the battlefields, it will go back to your library third from the top. So that's cool. You get to maybe do this a number of times throughout the game. Pilgrim's Eye. This does have an enters the battlefield effect. It doesn't feel hyper relevant though. Maybe early on, if you're stumbling on mana and you need to fix color or something, will be good for you. But it doesn't really feel like it's doing all that much here. Sorceries. Akroma's Vengeance. So this is going to deal with problematic artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. Of course, it's a panic button board sweep, but it also is cycling if you don't need it, which is cool. Entreat the Angels. Okay, you're going to see a lot of miracles here, obviously. And with Entreat the Angels, you're going to be able to build an army, hopefully, of 4/4 flying angels, which could be very powerful if someone doesn't have a board sweep or an answer to it. And of course, you're going to want to set this up so you get to draw it as a miracle. Also, too, when it comes to value, I mean, this is like a $3, $4 card, so not a bad reprint here. Terminus, another miracle card, and this is a good board sweep. This is going to let you deal with a lot of things that other board sweeps just can't deal with, like indestructible creatures, for example. Devastation Tide, another good miracle card, and this time you get to return all non-land permanents to their owner's hands. Hopefully you get more advantage thanks to the leave and enters the battlefield effects that you have on many of your cards. Dream Cache, this could potentially help you set up some cards on top of your library. Ponder, another way to do the same thing. Portent, cool reprint here. I like the new arts, and yeah, this one is another powerful card in this deck because you can just set up your future plays, and it does let you draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep, so do remember that. Treasure Hunt, yeah, this gets a little bit better if you manipulate the top of your deck. You're not necessarily going really deep with this deck, but even if you just set up the next 3 cards, then perhaps you put 2 lands on top and you get some extra value here. Army of the Damned. Yeah, zombies are still here. I bet you forgot about them. This is going to create a lot of them, as a matter of fact. 13, and you can flash it back and do it again later. If you play this at the right time, you could take someone out with this card. It's very powerful. I just kind of wish the zombie theme didn't feel shoehorned in. Instance. Banishing Stroke. Yeah, you can put a artifact, creature, or enchantment at the bottom of its owner's deck, so that's actually pretty sweet considering you can miracle that for just 1 potentially. And again, it deals with things like Indestructible nicely. Return to Dust. Yeah, good card if you have some problematic artifacts or enchantments on the battlefield. Brainstorm. No brainer here, right? You want to manipulate your deck. This is an awesome way to do it. Predict. Now this rewards you for manipulating your deck and also put something in your graveyard. We're starting to see a few ways now to populate the graveyard, but honestly, I don't feel like there's enough payouts already built into the deck. There's a few, definitely, but I don't know if it feels consistent enough. Telling Time, another way to manipulate your deck. Ether Mage's Touch. This card is kind of weird, but I always liked it because it's an instant. That's the key here. You can kind of surprise somebody with a blocker. Again, if you know what's on top of your deck, then you can say, okay, reveal the top 4 cards. I know I'm going to have a really good blocker. And if someone attacks me, then I can surprise them with it. Now, it doesn't give the creature haste, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to play this like on your turn or anything like that, unless you just really want to get that creature off your deck and into your hand, because it will do that. Enters and leaves battlefield effects work well with this card too. So it's an interesting card. It definitely has some application here. Mortify. Always good. Destroy target creature or enchantment at instant speed. Utter End. These are great. It only costs 4. Exile target non-land permanent. Instant speed. Esper Charm. Love the versatility. Destroy an enchantment. Draw 2 cards or target player discards 2 cards. And remember, that could be you. You might want to dump something in your graveyard for reanimation purposes. Enchantments. We get a tribal instant. Look at that. Shapeshifter, Crib Swap is the card. And it does create a changeling. So you exile target creature at instant speed, and then the controller gets a 1/1 colorless shapeshifter with changeling. So it does become all creature types, and that could be relevant considering nowadays when you play Commander, every other person's playing a tribal deck. So keep that in mind. However, it does deal with something problematic that might be coming your way at instant speed. So I do like that. In this deck, when I want to take one of my things and turn it into a zombie, 1/1 shapeshifter / zombie, I don't know, maybe. The deck has really light ninja and zombie themes, but it doesn't feel like that kind of play would be very practical most of the time. Light Form. Okay, here's one of the cards that's going to reward you for knowing you have a creature on top of your deck by simply manifesting it and then eventually being able to flip it. Giving it flying and lifelink will be great. Cloudform, same story here with flying and hexproof. Artifacts, they did a much better job in this deck incorporating some mana rocks. Let's see what we have here. Azorius Signet, always love the Signets. Commander's Sphere, another really fantastic card to have in Commander decks. Crystal Ball, not a mana rock, but it's going to help you scry, which is very important here. Dimir Signet, yet another one. Mind Stone, these are always great. You get some extra mana out of it at first. Later on, you can draw a card and sacrifice it. Orzhov Signet, yet another one. Seer's Lantern, this one will tap for mana, but also will scry for you. Sol Ring, yeah, it's in all decks this year. Always good to see these reprinted because even though it comes out so often, it's still a $3-4 card. Lands. Okay, you're going to notice this deck especially has a lot of comes into play tap lands. I mean, they're fine out of the box if you're just playing casually with friends, but you'll definitely want to upgrade these. Arcane Sanctum. We'll start off, though, with one of the 3-color lands. These aren't bad. I kind of like the versatility they provide. Azorius Chancery. Bounce lands are great too. Like, I'm fine with those. I don't feel like they necessarily have to come out. Azorius Guildgate. Okay, one of the first comes into play tap lands. Barrenmoor. They do give you some of the cycling lands, which are actually pretty cool here because, again, if you know what's on top of your deck, then these get a little bit better. Command Tower, always good. This will be great in a 3-color deck like this one. Dimir Aqueduct, another bounce land. Dimir Guildgate, another comes into play tap land. Dismal Backwater comes into play tapped. Forsaken Sanctuary comes into play tapped. See the theme here. Hellamar Depths, this also comes into play tapped, but it does give you blue mana. And also, maybe more importantly, will let you manipulate the top of your deck a little bit. Drar Isle Refuge, guess what? Comes into play tapped. Lonely Sandbar, another cycling land. Meandering River comes into play tapped. Mortuary Mire. This is actually pretty good in this deck. Yes, I know it comes into play tapped as well. But I like the fact that when this enters the battlefield, you may put target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. So now you know what's on top of your deck that could be very relevant with some other plays. And we see in this deck, you're kind of trying to populate your graveyard at times. And also there's a lot of enters and leaves battlefield effects that could be relevant. So getting a creature with those effects back could be good value. So yeah, it's decent here for sure. Nubenalia, yeah, it does come into play tapped, but at least it lets you scry when it enters the battlefield. It's pretty good here. Orzhov Basilica, another bounce land. Orzhov Guildgate, say it with me now, enters the battlefield tapped. You know, if you're going to play some enters the battlefield tapped cards, the scry lands would probably be great here. Scoured Barrens, here's another one. Secluded Steppe, here's a cycling land. Sajiri Refuge, another comes into play tapped duel. Submerged Boneyard, yet another one. Tranquil Cove, yet another one. And we finally get to 8 plains, 5 islands, and 3 swamps. Alright, so that brings me to my final thoughts on this deck, and let's begin by talking about the actual deck construction. I'm going to say this, it is definitely not as laser focused as the Bant deck we looked at yesterday. That deck was very well constructed. This one I think has too many sub-themes, too many weird things going on, but not as bad as the Jund deck we looked at a couple days ago. I would say if I were to rank all 4 decks, Bant would definitely be my favorite when it comes to the way they constructed it. Probably followed by Izzet, then this one, and then finally Jund. Although I like a lot of the individual cards a lot in this one, maybe more so than perhaps all the other decks, quite honestly, especially the new cards that they included here. So that is worth noting. And I do think with some upgrades, you could actually make a really strong deck here. Now, the primary theme, obviously, is the what's on top of the deck matters, and that feels pretty strong. It definitely could be stronger, though. I would be afraid that I might run into, like, all my ways to manipulate my deck and none of my payoffs or vice versa, and I'm sure that could be a problem. But over the course of a long game, that should even out, I would imagine. But I don't know if the deck's consistent enough the way it is to make me feel comfortable with that mechanic. So I would want to buff that mechanic quite a bit, I think. The zombies really feel shoehorned in. Like, they could just go away and you can put other things in there to strengthen the main mechanic. That would be fine. But I like zombies, so maybe I would take especially the new commander card and actually use that in a zombie build and have a lot of fun with it. Now, what about this whole like reanimation thing that's going on too? Well, that feels like an okay sub-theme. I don't know how consistent it is though. Yes, you do have some board sweeps and such, but at the same time, like I feel because it is such a sub-theme that it's not always going to work out to your advantage when you need it to. So it's okay, but again, it feels a little too watered down. So the deck isn't being pulled into a million directions like the Jund deck was, but I do feel like it could strengthen its main focus at least a little bit. And again, upgrades will help you, but you are paying in many cases for cards to upgrade unless you already own them. And so you've already spent $39.99. Yep, that's right, $39.99 for this particular deck. These have gone up $5 this year. It used to be $34.99. Which brings me to my next point. Value is definitely an issue. Now, the good news with this deck is there's some decent value right now attached to some of the newer cards. A lot of people are excited about them, but unfortunately, the problem is that once this product hits shelves, those values will go down pretty quickly. And when you take that away, this deck does not have a lot of value in reprints. I mentioned a couple $3, $4 cards here and there, but that was it, and that's really, really lacking. I've said this in all the videos. Wizards needs to get their act together when it comes to reprints for these products in the future, because This year, it was very lackluster, especially considering it went up $5. It just doesn't feel very good to me. Now, if you were to add up the value of all the cards, including the new ones this time around, this is a pretty high value deck, just generally around probably the $120, $130 mark. However, again, you're going to lose a lot of value when these things actually hit the shelves. And again, the value is all really from the new cards, not from the older reprints. But that is a problem with the product design for sure. And yeah, this costs $40. I'm getting more of that back in cards, but bulk cards aren't truly worth what you see on a price guide, right? Because unless I own an LGS, no one's going to take these cards off my hand for these prices. So do consider that. And like I say in all these videos, this product isn't about something you should feel like you need to flip or sell off for parts. That's not the point of this, and it never should be. But you at least want to feel like you're getting your money's worth when you spend $40 on something. And right now, I just don't feel that way about any of these 4 decks, unfortunately. So that's kind of where I stand with it. Overall, though, I think a lot of fun could be had with this. And remember, at the end of the day, look at these 4 decks. If you're only going to buy one, buy the one that looks like it's the most fun to you. If the Jund one looks like it's the most fun and you're going to upgrade these things anyway, right? Then go for the Jund one. I mean, definitely, Commander's all about playing into what you feel is your style and what you're going to enjoy doing. Don't force yourself to play the Bant deck just because I said it was the best one, in other words, right? Anyway, with that being said, I hope this video series helped you out a little bit. Later on, we will be doing upgrade videos to talk about what cards could make these decks better. Saturday, of course, we'll be doing our market watch as usual. But until next time, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.